I started my medium format journey with the GFX 50S Mark II, and that was dabbed with the Manola Rokkor 45mm f1.2 and that, or f2, sorry, and that was the closest pancake lens I could get. The size and compactness of a 45mm, the nature of the medium format sensor being much bigger than your typical full frame, you would have to add a crop factor of, I believe, 0.79, making the 45mm closer to a 36mm a full frame equivalent. I've known about the medium format sensors for a long time now, but it didn't really pique my interest early in my photography career or as a hobbyist. I've been stuck with the APS-C cameras for the majority of my photography career and mainly stuck with Fujifilm for a long time. I didn't care much about full frame because it didn't offer enough for me to upgrade over my crop sensor cameras. I don't need the extra step of light. Very indifferent about the, I guess, better and more creamy bokeh coming from a full frame sensor. But for me, that didn't bother me because I'd rather have something that's a little bit more lighter and more compact, and that's just able to really hit all the criteria I need for a camera. And crop sensors are fine for most of the things that I do, and majority of my clients, even the people I've worked with in the past, won't really notice the image quality difference between the crop sensor photo versus a full frame photo. In the end, as long as the photo as a final product looks good and appealing to their eyes, that is the end goal, right, for that. What I liked about the one thing that I love about the crop sensor camera is that because of the fact that it's a 1.4 crop factor for most crop sensor cameras, meaning that I didn't have to really worry about if I needed a longer prime lens when there's a 1.5 crop on top of a 35 becoming a 50, or a 56mm becoming an 85 to 86mm, which is great because I love the way that it worked, and I've always had that going on for me for a long time, so that never bothered me in terms of getting a more tighter focal length, because the crop factor will do the work for me. Switching over to medium format is that there are a lot of compromises when switching over from a crop sensor or even full frame to a medium format. This can be applicable to any medium format cameras like the GFX, or even the Hasselblad. That's another example, is that they're significantly bulkier and heavier than most of the crop sensor cameras, or even a lot of the full frame cameras. In exchange for the money you're paying for, you're getting the best image quality that money can buy. I've taken the GFX with me everywhere for the past year and a half, from street photography, portrait sessions, weddings, and even a lot of my travel work too, going to Japan twice, going to Europe, in Italy. And man, I love the fact that I could get the best image quality out of my photos despite the weight of carrying that with you everywhere. Does the burden of carrying a heavy GFX camera with me all the time, is it a burden? No, because in the end I get the best image quality from the sensor, and that's something that I really care about in terms of my personal work and even some of my client work. So the thing about capturing photos with a medium format camera is that it teaches me to be a little slower, being more mindful of what I'm looking at, just really take my time, because the fact is the medium format sensor, it's a much bigger sensor than a full frame. I think roughly about 70% bigger over a typical full frame sensor. And what that really means is that due to the sheer size of it, it requires more data and more time to be able to capture everything what the viewfinder sees, and to just have it digest into the sensor, and voila, there's your like photo. Crazy, with the slower approach, it helps me step back a bit and really pay attention of what I'm looking at. I've been guilty of spamming like photos left and right when I was on my crop sensor and obviously my full frame. Just doing that while spamming photos, I think felt so rushed. I felt rushed. I didn't really take the time to really admire what I'm seeing or rethink what I'm trying to capture. Personally, I'm sure other photographers can probably say the same thing, that we feel really spoiled with today's modern tech that's been packed into all these like modern cameras. You can never ever miss a perfect moment. Just by the nature of it, it taught me just to step back and really appreciate what I'm capturing and rethink and time everything correctly. And in the end, it's made photography so much more fun for me. I know that it might sound counterintuitive saying that, oh, why would you want a slower camera that has a higher chance of missing a shot, right? Because the fact that, you know, it's a medium format sensor, why can't I just opt in for like a full frame that can still give you a good image quality and all that jazz, and you'll have a higher chance of capturing perfect scenes or whatnot. But you're not buying a medium format camera for that. You're buying the medium format camera for its image quality and its shooting experience. I guess it could be equivalent to like the shooting experience of using a Leica. I can only imagine that based on what I've heard about Leica and just the user experience and experience of using one, is that it has a similar like take where you just really take your time and have fun with photography by just shoot what you like, but in a way that you're more conscious of what you're capturing. It kind of paved the way how I see things now. I felt more comfortable and more alive whenever I press the shutter. It's really similar to shooting film, for example. You're very limited to the number of shots in one film stock. You really needed to consider what you're capturing, because you will only have like 12, 24, 36 exposures at that time, right? And you just gotta make sure like you make every shot count, because man, film stock aren't cheap, they're bloody expensive. And I know that with digital, we're very spoiled because like we could easily get like thousands of like images taken on one SD card, right? And it really spoiled us in a way where like we can just keep holding the shutter button, hoping that we could grab one or two really good photos out of like 1,000 or 100 of what you had to curl through, right? And doesn't seem fun. That doesn't sound fun at all, just to spend like time to like find that one perfect photo out of like a batch of thousands. And I mean, to me that doesn't seem fun at all as a hobbyist. It's been a while since I've started my medium format journey, is that I can really now appreciate the level of detail, the tones, the highlight and shadow recovery from a medium format sensor. It's absurd to a certain level. And because of that, the flexibility of editing a raw photo from a GFX, it's crazy how much you could push those files and not have it break. And that really opened up to opportunities and more options for me to color grade my photos, recover highlights, bring my shadows up a bit more if I were shooting on like a low light settings. And yeah, I just can't fathom from going away from medium format. It would be hard to give up flexibility and color and tonality and whatnot. Plus, on top of that, it could fit way more pixels, resulting in more details in images. I think a bonus for most people is like the shallower depth of field that can create a better separation between the subjects. So like that 3D pop look, but that needs to be achieved with a fast prime lens, like at 1.7 or 1.4. Like if I can think of a Mamiya, a Nikon 1.4, right? That can really achieve that bokeh look, the 3D pop look. And if you had to buy like a naval lens, like the 80mm 1.7 or even the 55mm 1.4, or sorry, 1.7, not 1.4. Ability to crop and reframe your photos is another great perk. The way that I work is that I love the ability to reframe or crop into my photos. Really? Anyways, I was saying that the ability to crop in my photos and reframing everything is such a great thing. I have a habit of reframing a lot of my photos, and just the extra megapixels that comes from a medium format sensor is welcoming, in my opinion. For example, if I didn't have a telephoto lens with me while I'm taking a landscape shot of mountains or birds or whoever, can just crop into similar to a focal length of a telephoto lens or even further, and would still be able to keep the same amount of sharpness and detail out of that image, which is, you know, a huge win. The gradual tonality from shadows and whites is beautiful, underexposed by 3 or 4 stops, but if you pull in the shadows, you can still see a lot of the details and not a lot of like noise, which is amazing. I started my medium format journey with the GFX, as I mentioned earlier. So on top of pairing my GFX with like Fuji's native glass, I also discovered the ability to adapt old vintage medium format glass. For example, which would be, you know, the Pentax 645 or the Mamiya 645. Or you can even adapt full frame glass like the Manila, Canon, or Nikon. The great thing about having the option to be able to do that is native glass is really expensive. Like it can go as far as like thousands of dollars. And I know a lot of us, including me, aren't able to fork over that much money over for one like native glass, let alone 2. So the ability to adapt old vintage glass for a fraction of the price you would pay for a native glass, a really nice option to have. Just keep in mind that there are trade-offs. Capturing photos will be much slower. Autofocus will be much slower compared to your modern full frame and crop sensor cameras, but exchange though, you'll get the best image quality and the best shooting experience. If you have any questions about my take on my medium format journey, please feel free to leave a message. I'll try my best to answer all your questions. If you like my content, just hit the like button. Thanks guys. Cheers.